Okay, welcome to session 6, part 2. We're talking about practicing righteousness. In this part 2 section, we're going to talk the first part of Matthew 6, and this is on reward, where you're doing righteous things, activities, spiritual activities that you're looking to get a reward for. So let's go to the first one. The first one was giving to the poor. This is starting in Matthew chapter 6, verse 2 through verse 4. So when you give to the poor, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, so that they will be praised by people. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward in full. But when you give to the poor, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your charitable giving will be in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So, he's telling us, hide your giving as much as you possibly can. So you're not looking to be lauded by people, but rather by God. And I don't know about you. I've never been to a church or anything where, when people were going to give, they trumpets would blare and stuff like that if somebody was going to give, to the poor or something. But I was at a conference once. This was a thing. It wasn't a biblical Unitarian thing. It was a different kind of thing altogether. But it was a Christian conference, and it was a big minister and his ministry, and a big organization. And at one point, they brought up and paraded across the stage a number of their large donors. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, wow, I mean, Jesus was pretty clear about this right here. And yeah, they were getting their reward. People were applauding them, and they were smiling, and as they were crossing this stage, and I thought, wow, okay, well, there's your trumpets blaring. And so we don't want to do that, right? We don't want it to be about getting reward from people. We want to be rewarded by God. So how does this relate to the kingdom quality? So I picked humility and pureness of heart, which includes the idea of prioritizing God. So humility, obviously, if I'm looking for people to praise me, it's about me. Whereas if I'm giving in secret and nobody knows this but me and God, then it's about our relationship, right? It's about my relationship with God. And in one sense, that's a way of prioritizing God. I care more about what God thinks about me than I do about what people think about me. Maybe the people will think that I don't give anything, but it doesn't matter. I really only want to care about what God thinks. So I think those are a couple of the characteristics that kind of play into this example. Then how does that relate to self-sacrifice? So by removing yourself from the glory that the poor and others are giving because of their needs being met. So they're giving glory because the needs have been met, right? That's, this is an answer to prayer and people are getting taken care of. Well, if I have made myself the object of that glory, well, clearly that is self-centeredness. But if I have done it in such a way where I'm not receiving the glory, maybe they don't even know that I'm the person. Sometimes that can be a little challenging. But if largely you've hidden that, well, now the glory can go to God and not to me. I don't want the glory. I want the glory to go to God. Why? Because God said that he wants to reward me, but he's not going to do it if it's about me and what other people think about me and what they're going to say about me and stuff like that. So you can see in that example kind of how, what Jesus is talking about. It's pretty clear, and how that relates back to, this is a practical example of these kingdom characteristics. and self-sacrifice. Second section is praying. So let's read the section first. This is verses 5-8. And when you pray, you are not to be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners so that they will be seen by people. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward in full. But as for you, when you pray, go into your inner room, close your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you are praying, do not use thoughtless repetition as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words. So do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. And we're going to skip the Lord's Prayer. And we'll move on to the fasting section after this. But don't make a show of praying for other people. Make it between you and God, right? It's pretty straightforward. The example that he's giving here, it's if you make it, you're making it a show that of your prayers. That is self-centered. You're wanting people to focus on you. Don't treat God like an idol, right? So he's don't do what these pagans are doing, right? I'm not an idol. And in prayer, sometimes people can treat God like an idol. And when the pagans at this time were doing it, they would do it where it was a repetitive prayer, a lengthy repetitive prayer. And the reason that they were doing that is they felt like their God would hear them better, and respond the more they said, right? And so, well, why would they do that, right? Well, the reason is that they basically were trying to get their God to do something for them, right? So it was a transactional relationship where I'm going to pray and I'm going to do this repetitive prayer and I'm going to do it over and over and over and over again because I'm just trying to convince my God who, probably doesn't care about me, but maybe if I say enough things, he'll hear me. If our community is all doing that together, saying enough things, maybe he'll hear me. And then he'll do something about what it is that I'm asking for. And Jesus is like, don't do that. He's your Father. He knows what you need before you ask him. I like to think about it this way. There are plenty of things to pray for, lots of different things, and not enough time to pray for them all. So don't waste your time doing some elaborate prayer thinking that that's going to get God to hear you better. It's not, right? He wants to have a relationship with us. He cares about us. So he appreciates us praying for one another and for change in our life and stuff like that, for asking for his help. He wants to help us. So how does this relate to kingdom, qualities? I think it relates to most of them, right? This is humility, mercy. Mercy is about helping other people. And it relates to the poor themselves, the idea of the poor and the crying out to God, that this is how they're supposed to cry out to God. So those are, probably relates to all of them. And then again, self-sacrifice, it's same concept. We're not making it about ourselves, right? It's, if I'm looking to impress people with my elaborate prayers, my loud prayers, I repeat the prayer more than anybody else around here, and I do it loud from my rooftop, and I'm doing it because I want everybody to know how pious I am, what a good guy I am. Well, that is self-centeredness. So to not do that, to go into my prayer closet and do it in secret, means that I'm not making it about myself. I'm making it about my relationship with God. All right, last section. Fasting, Matthew 6:16-18. Now, whenever you fast, do not make a gloomy face. And if you're not familiar with fasting, so fasting is where you're not eating, right? You're setting aside food specifically. People will use it in other ways. I'm fasting from television or something. But but that's not what this is talking about. And generally speaking, it's about food. So now, whenever you fast, do not make a gloomy face as the hypocrites do, for they distort their faces so that they will be noticed by people when they are fasting. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward in full. But as for you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face. So take a shower, clean yourself up, right? So that your fasting will not be noticed by people, but by your Father who is in secret. So he's the one who's aware of what you're doing. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you, right? Well, okay. So first of all, it's important to know what fasting was for at the time, right? And so what they would do is they would fast for however long. It could be a short period of time, it could be a long period of time. And they were using that to get to get God's attention. They wanted God to help them with some problem. It could be a health problem, could be a financial problem. They need help. And so, maybe it's their city is under siege. And so the leaders of the city call for a fast because they're trying to get God to deliver them from this terrible situation, right? So there's the general idea behind fasting. I'm trying to get God's attention so that he will take care of a problem for me. It relates to various kingdom qualities. I like the mourning your sin. The idea that I am going to fast because I want God's help, either with, say, national sin or with my own sin or sin in my family or community or whatever. And I'm going to fast. Well, if I'm making a show about that, God is saying, nope. If I'm not making a show about that, and I'm just doing it in secret in relationship with God, then he will hear me. And this here, by the way, we're going to look at this in a little bit. I guess it'll be in part 3. That this comes straight out of Isaiah 58, and it's really cool when you see kind of in its total. And in humility and pureness of heart, all this stuff. Again, it's about humbling myself, setting myself aside, that kind of thing. And then again, self-sacrifice. It's removing myself from the center of attention, right? I don't want to be that center. I don't want to be self-centered. I want to be self-sacrificing. So briefly, I want to talk about the lessons that we see from all 3 of these examples. So we want to always glorify God, not ourselves. We want to be self-sacrificing of ourselves and centered on God. You can seek reward from either people or God, but not both. It's not a problem to seek reward from God. And honestly, in a lot of ways, it's not necessarily a problem to seek reward from people. But if you're practicing righteousness, you need to be seeking your reward from God. Your spiritual religious activities should reflect kingdom character qualities. So the way in which you do these religious activities like praying needs to reflect those characteristics. Those characteristics need to undergird everything that we do as part of our spiritual lives. And then finally, your spiritual/religious activities should always be self-sacrificial, not self-centered, right? So if we think about them this way, if I think about, okay, this thing that I do for, maybe it's Bible study, for instance, am I doing this for myself to glorify myself so that I can show people how much I know about the Bible and elevate their view of me? Or am I doing it in order to serve and to help? And maybe I've got a situation that I'm dealing with where I really want to be a peacemaker, but I want to see what does the Bible say about this subject, right? And how can I help in that situation, right? So we always want to ground our spiritual and religious activities in the kingdom character qualities and in self-sacrificial love. So quick review. You can seek reward for spiritual religious work from either people or from God, but not both. And we need to give, pray, and fast, but do it self-sacrificially. And then we'll pick up the next part in part 2.